Hi readers! So before we start the show, I have a quick ask. Will you pretty please rate and review the show if you like it? I mean, if you don't like it, well, that's your choice. But if you do like it, rating and reviewing helps other people find the show. So if you take a few seconds and hit those 5 stars, that helps. And if you take a minute to write something nice about the show, that will help even more. So thank you in advance. And alrighty, now on to the episode. Welcome to The Reader's Couch, a podcast that brings you lively conversations with some of your favourite authors and bookish personalities. Over here, the couch is always booked, but I've moved some books to the side table and fluffed some cushions so I can welcome a guest or two to come lounge with us. Today on the couch, we have 2 readers who've decided to come lounge with us and share their top 10 books of 2021. In part 5 of our 6-part Top 10 Books of 2021 series is Michelle Martin. She's a photographer and the bookstagrammer behind the account Michelle Reads Books on Instagram. And Kimberly Poole. She's the founder of Melanin Mindscape and the bookstagrammer behind the account Melanin Mindscape, also on Instagram. So stay tuned to discover and learn more about the books that made their top 10 list. A historical fiction novel to add to your reading list that's based on the true event of the Auschwitz-Birkenau Revolt is Beyond the Wire by James D. Shipman. Beyond the Wire explores the October 1944 uprising behind the walls of the Auschwitz concentration camps through the eyes of fictional characters. The novel gives us a vivid portrayal of the day-to-day life in the camps, and it tells the story of the women and men who fought to free themselves and how they held on to hope despite the most dire of circumstances. Beyond the Wire by James D. Shipman is being published by Kensington Books, and it's a historical novel of survival you really don't want to miss. Hi readers! Don't forget to download your free copy of the 2022 Winter Reading Guide. This year's guide has a total of 30 of the best new books organized across 7 categories, with 6 classic novels included as well. We also have a category that's dedicated to the minimalist reader, and the Minimalist Reads list has 8 titles that we highly recommend if you're only planning to pick up a few reads this winter. In the guide, you'll also find some fun recipes, things to do at home, and tips to improve your reading life. So download your free guide and see the books that made the list by visiting bibliolifestyle.com. That's your free copy of the 2022 Winter Reading Guide over at bibliolifestyle.com. I've also included a link in the show notes so you can sign up there. Hi readers, welcome again to The Reader's Couch. I'm your host, Victoria Wood, and here on the couch with me is Michelle Martin. She's a photographer and the bookstagrammer behind the account Michelle Reads Books on Instagram. And even though she didn't say this, she has a once-a-month newsletter that I really, really love, so you all need to check that out. But she's an avid reader who loves literary fiction, rom-coms, and a good book list. So please welcome to the couch, Michelle Martin.
Hey Victoria, thank you for having me.
I'm super excited to have you here. Can't wait to hear about your books that you selected as your top 10 for 2021. But before we get there, I'd love for you to introduce yourself to listeners. Tell us who you are, where they can find you, and what else you have going on.
So as I mentioned, my name is Michelle Martin, and I'm a bookworm living in Portland, Maine, which I recently moved here from New York City. As Victoria also mentioned, I'm a wedding photographer, so I recently left my full-time job in higher education to become self-employed as a full-time wedding photographer, which has been really fun. I'm also the creator of Michelle Reads Books, an Instagram account, and a blog where I share reviews of books and other bookish things and just dive into the wonderful community of readers on the Instagram platform. In addition to that, I'm also part of the Italic Type team, which is an app for tracking your reading with beautiful design and no ads. So I joined their team about 6 months ago, and I've been working part-time to help them with their marketing and branding efforts. So you can find me sharing about everything books on Instagram at Michelle Reads Books, and my website and my blog is linked there as well.
And sign up for her newsletter, you guys. She didn't even say it again. And I love it. I really look forward to it. It's once a month. And it's just, cozy, comforting, and just to hear what Michelle's doing and reading. So subscribe to her newsletter too. Okay, Michelle, let's get into the books. What's the first book on your list of top 10 books that you read in 2021?
Sure. So just to let everyone know, I know some people rank their top 10 books, but that would be way too hard for me. So these are in no particular order. I think I love them all equally for various reasons. So the first one on my list is Sorrow and Bliss by Meg Mason, which published in 2021. And this book is about Martha, who's in her 40s and is at a moment in her life when she's feeling like she hasn't really accomplished anything. Her husband is leaving her and she hasn't written what she wants, and she's moving back in with her eccentric parents. The story follows along as she heads on the road to recovery from years of depression and all of the mental health struggles she's gone through. I read this book back in February, and I loved it because it was darkly funny and so smart. And Martha at the time was an extremely relatable character, especially because we were still in the very depths of the pandemic before vaccines hit. So this book kind of was dark and funny, but just very, very comforting in the moment that I read it.
Absolutely. I read that one too. I actually connected to the fact that she felt like she was aging and she never accomplished anything. I think sometimes we can be so hard on ourselves, especially when it comes to our personal creative pursuits. And yeah, I was super excited to see you select Sorrow and Bliss. It was also a favorite of mine. Okay, book 2 on your list.
So book number 2 is Great Circle by Maggie Shipstead, which is also a 2021 release. So it's a story spanning many decades that tells the story of Marion, a daring female aviator in the early 20th century. There's a dual timeline to the story, so one half is focused on Marion and the other half is set in the modern day, telling the story of an actress who is struggling with her personal image and decides to take on the project of playing Marion in a movie that's being made about Marion's life. The book is huge. It's about 600 pages, which when I dove in, I was like, I'm not sure how this is going to go. But then I just couldn't put it down. I really loved Maggie Shipstead's writing. This is the second or third book I've read by her, and I just found the story to be so engrossing. So I've recommended this one to pretty much everyone that's asked for a book recommendation this year.
That's amazing. What's book 3?
Book 3 is Open Water by Caleb Azuma Nelson, which again is a 2021 release. And it's a modern-day love story that's set in London between two young Black artists. They are both trying to make their mark and come together and are torn apart throughout this short novel. This is a debut novel, and I think I loved it so much because it was a debut, and it was so impressive that this was his first piece of fiction that he wrote. I found the writing really beautiful, and I found the story to be very, very modern and fresh, which felt really fresh and rejuvenating during the time that I read it.
That's awesome. So that one's on my shelf. Haven't read it yet, but hearing you share about it just now kind of gave me that little nudge I need to pick it up. So yay, awesome.
Yeah, and it's pretty short, so I think it's under 200 pages, so it's a perfect kind of weekend read if you have a free day.
Yeah, awesome, for sure. Okay, book 4.
Book 4 is Fault Lines by Emily Itami, which is also published in 2021. And I know you had her on your podcast, so readers might be familiar with this one. But it's about Mizuki, who is a Japanese housewife who is struggling with the reality of being a mother to her young children and also a housewife. She strikes up a relationship with a restaurateur and has to decide between her two lives of her family life or this exciting new relationship that she's exploring. I also found this book to be very dark and funny, and I love the way that Emily made commentary on what it means to become a mother and all the different sacrifices that women make to become mothers. I think that's one of my favorite topics to read about in books, and she did it in this kind of dark and funny and fresh way, so I really enjoyed this one.
Yeah, that too is a favorite of mine. It was such a joy to have Emily on the podcast. She was super fun. So you guys can go
Hmm.
check back. That was episode 3. She's a great guest, but also it was a great debut novel as well. Okay, Michelle, we're at the halfway point. Book 5. What's on your list?
So, book number 5 is Monogamy by Sue Miller, which published in 2020. So, it's an insightful novel about marriage and what it means to truly know someone. The two main characters are Annie and Graham. Annie is a photographer, and Graham is a bookseller. They've been married for 30 years and have a very vibrant life together with a full family and lots of friends and different events that they host at their home. So in the novel, Graham suddenly dies, and Annie finds out a secret about him that shatters her whole perception of their marriage. And we follow along as she sort of grapples with this throughout the novel. I really loved this one because it felt very deeply human. It was my first Sue Miller book, and I just felt like she captured the dynamic and messiness of relationships and modern families so well. So I read this back in January, and it was, again, one that really stuck with me throughout the entire year.
Oh, that's awesome. That's amazing. So, fun fact, Monogamy was also my first Sue Miller book. And also over on our Instagram page for the podcast at the Couch is Booked, I tend to recommend books like the books from the authors I interviewed on the show. And when
Mm.
I interviewed Emily Itami for Fault Lines, which you just shared, I recommended readers to pick up Monogamy because I felt they were similar,
Mm.
but also so good. So it's interesting when you said Fault Lines and you tend to like to read these stories. So now I'm not surprised that Monogamy is there because I felt that was also in a similar but different kind of vein.
Yeah, I guess I didn't really relate the two, but now that I'm thinking about it, I can definitely see that they're similar in different ways.
Yeah, they're similar but different. So it was one of
Hmm.
those, well, if you read this book, maybe you'd like that one. So
Right.
yeah, it was one of those. Okay, awesome. So what's book 6?
Book 6 is Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney, which is a 2021 release. And I'm sure many people have heard and seen about this book. I think it was one of the biggest books of the year. But it's a story about four 30-somethings. Alice, Eileen, and Simon are 3 of the main characters, and they are all best friends from childhood. Felix is the 4th character, and he's a new love interest that enters Alice's life when she is holed up on the Irish coast recovering from her sudden fame as an author. All 4 of them fall in love and muse about what it means to be alive in this day and age. I'm a huge Sally Rooney fan, and I think that this book, I wasn't sure what to expect going into it, but it quickly became my favorite book by her. I felt like she balanced the depression of the current state of the world with musings on the small beauties in life really well. And I really connected with all the characters being the age that they are in their early 30s and kind of coming into this, or ending early adulthood and coming into like the middle adulthood part of life. And I really connected and liked that part of the story.
I absolutely love this, Sally Rooney. And you answered the question before I even got to ask it, which was, of the 3, what was your favorite? Because this for me was a standout by her. I thought, well,
Mm-hmm.
okay, maybe because critics will say what they say. And I was like, oh no, I don't know what to expect here. Is it that the best is behind her? But for me, no, this was the novel. It was so good. And I could have kept on reading. I could have kept on
Mm-hmm.
reading. I was so sucked in with these group of friends and just everything that's going on. I love this one. I really did.
Yeah, and I think it's been so cool to watch Sally Rooney herself mature. She's kind of written about the different ages that she's been when she's writing. So it's just very cool to see her kind of evolve and write about these different stages of life.
Absolutely. And for me, this was proof, you know what? She has a lot more left to write. And folks should not count her out here. Don't count Sally
Hmm.
Rooney out. I think she's really a good writer. And it's funny because she's also writing about a writer who's struggling as well. So that was also
Hmm.
interesting for me too.
I agree.
Book 7, what do we got?
So book 7 is called Win Me Something by Kaya Lucia Wu, which is published in 2021 as well. It is a coming-of-age story about Willa, who is a mid-20s biracial Chinese American. Her parents were divorced when she was young, and both of them remarried and had new families. So she's really struggled to fit in both with her family life and at school and in her community. so she feels very unseen and lonely. So she takes a job as a nanny for a wealthy white family and has to confront who she is and what it means to belong. This was another debut novel this year, and I was just completely blown away by this story and how well it was told. I think Willa, the main character, is a very sad character, but you really can't help but feel anything but empathy for her as you're reading the story. And you're completely rooting her on as she sort of discovers herself and finds her voice. And I just thought that this story was so wonderful. And I didn't see too much about it, and maybe I missed it, but so it was kind of like a sleeper hit for me. Like I didn't know what to expect going in, and then I really, really loved it.
Well, as someone who tries to stay on top of all these book things, no, this one's new to me too. I haven't seen it anywhere but your page. And knowing that you're going to share it, I was also like, how about that? So that one missed me too, but it's on my list of either I'm going to get it or I'll buy it. Books, but I think now, seeing I'm heading to the bookshop this weekend, I'll probably grab a copy, because hearing you share about it, but also reading about it ahead of time, this one is definitely a sleeper in the fall. I hope more readers will give it a go. Okay, book 8.
All right, so book 8 is The Office of Historical Corrections by Danielle Evans, which came out in early 2021. So it's a collection of short stories that explore race, grief, and American history. I'm not a big short story reader. I only read a handful of them a year, but this is a book that has stuck with me all year and that I've recommended over and over and over again to everyone. The stories just felt so relevant and modern and nuanced, and Evans is just a great writer. So I picked up a couple of her other books and I'm looking forward to checking out more of her work.
Same here. Unlike you, though, I do love reading short fiction. I think it's kind of a go-to for me in between novels, but this one was extremely nuanced, I think. If I could use a word to describe The Office of Historical Corrections, it's extremely nuanced, but it's so good. So yeah, thrilled to hear that was a favorite as well. Okay, we're down to the last 2. What's book 9?
So book 9 is a book that I just finished a few weeks ago. So it's fresh in my mind, but it's These Precious Days by Ann Patchett, which came out at the end of November. And it's a collection of essays that Ann Patchett has written over the years and throughout the pandemic. So they deal with themes of death and friendship and personal growth. And Ann Patchett is a favorite writer of mine, so I just reveled in this book of essays. I found them both insightful and challenging and comforting. They just felt like the perfect way to wrap up the end of the year. So for folks who are looking for something that feels right for the end of the year, I think that this book is a good collection to sit down with.
Awesome. Amazing. Now, book 10. What's the 10th book on your list?
The last book is Early Morning Riser by Katherine Heiny, which also came out in 2021. It tells the story of Jane and Duncan, who are married, but Duncan is a prolific seducer of women. So Jane falls in love with him when she moves to this small town, and they eventually get married. But she is consistently confronted with different people in the town that have had different relationships with Duncan. And this sounds depressing, but for anyone who's read Katherine Heiny, she is so good at creating like quirky, lovable characters. So this was my first book by her, and I promptly read her other 2 books after this. And she's just a hilarious author who creates these wonderfully dimensional characters that are fun and quirky, like I said, and her stories are so heartfelt. So this one was just smart and funny and wonderful. And if anyone's looking for something that's kind of fun and comforting, but still very smart, I would recommend this one.
That was also a favorite of mine this summer. It was just so good, so fun. The cover's eye-catching, so that's what drew me to it. Yeah, that's what drew me to it at first. But yeah, happy to report the story inside is so good. And again, happy to see that one on your list as well. Michelle, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your top 10 reads. It's been a thrill, and I hope some readers will hear a book or 2 that interests them and they'll grab a copy themselves or pull it from the shelves if it's still there.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I loved being able to share my list and getting to chat about it.
Here to join us on the couch and share her top 10 books of 2021 is Kimberly Poole. She's the bookstagrammer and founder of Melanin Mindscape, a blog dedicated to all things Black TV, Black literature, and Black history. And you can find her on Instagram at Melanin Mindscape. Please welcome to the couch, Kimberly. Hey, Kimberly.
Hey, Victoria, how are you?
I am doing well. I'm so happy to have you here. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited.
Yay! We're talking top 10 books of 2021. I can't wait. This is going to be so exciting. But before we get going, Kimberly, I want you to introduce yourself to listeners. Tell us who you are, where they can find you, what you're working on, what you're doing. Just spill all the tea.
Sure. Well, my name is Kimberly, and I'm a bibliophile living in the metro Atlanta area. I'm an attorney by trade, but I'm most passionate about books and Black history. I am the creator of Melanin Mindscape, a blog dedicated to Black lit, Black history, and Black TV. You can find me blogging on Melanin Mindscape at www.melaninmindscape.com and sharing book content on Instagram at Melanin Mindscape and on Facebook at One Melanin Mindscape.
Yes, loving all the content you've been sharing, Kimberly. So I hope folks will head on over both to the blog as well as your Instagram. But we're here to talk books today, top 10 of 2021. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Yay. Okay, so we're starting from 10 and we're going all the way down to 1. So what's book 10 on your list?
Book 10 is We Are Each Other's Harvest, Celebrating African American Farmers, Land, and Legacy by Natalie Brazil. So Natalie Brazil is the author of Queen Sugar, and she has written, this is her second book. It's an anthology of poems, essays, photographs, conversations, and stories that examine Black people's connection to the land from emancipation to today. In the 1920s, there were over 1 million Black farmers, but today there are only 45,000. And so this book explores the history and the importance of Black farmers in America. And though it's a frustrating read at times, it was uplifting and it's a true celebration of our resilience. I love this book more than I expected to because it's an anthology about farmers. So I really wasn't expecting to really love it. But I think in the end, it's probably my most personal pick of the year because I'm the granddaughter and great-granddaughter of farmers from rural America. So I think I just connected because the story that she was telling is probably the story of my great-grandfathers. So I was, I guess, very emotionally connected to it. And it was very unexpected. I was extremely emotional reading it and I just didn't know why. And it just had to make my top 10 because it was just one of those books that stayed with me.
Hearing your personal connection to the book, I think that makes all the difference. Seeing that, you know, folks in your family, they were farmers as well. So I can definitely see that. I haven't finished reading that book. You know, I've been flipping through, and it's been frustrating for me. But like you said, also uplifting to kind of hear just how Black folks have overcome so much. Even though there are only a few farmers there today, you know, they're still trudging along. So it was eye-opening, it was frustrating, but also uplifting at the same time. So I was thrilled to see it on your list.
Yeah, I loved it. I actually gifted it to my dad for his birthday, and he loved it too.
Oh, I love it. I love hearing that. That's amazing. Okay, what's book 9 on the list?
Book number 9 is 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. And so this book is about Eva Mercy, who is a successful author of an erotica series that she's really tired of writing about, but she has no choice but to continue because she has to pay the bills. And then there's Shane Hall, who is a successful author of 4 literary fiction books. A twist of fate places them on the same literary panel, but back in the day, during their senior year in high school, they fell in love and had a series of experiences that exposed their pain to each other. Their breakup was tragic, but here they are again 15 years later, and their lives change again in 7 days. So this was I like to call it a Bookstagram peer pressure read. I kept seeing 7 Days in June pop up on Instagram, so I just said, okay, let me just go ahead and do it. So this is a romance, but I felt like it took a lot of time to get to the romance part of it because we had to get through all of Eva's stuff and all of Shane's stuff. There was a lot of physical and emotional pain for both of them, but And I wanted to reach out and hug both of them because it was just so much going on. But once we got to the romance part, I absolutely loved it. And I love Tia Williams in general, her writing style, and her theme always seems to be finding love in the most unlikeliest of places. And this book was no different, but it was definitely a favorite. Glad I was pressured into reading it because it made my top 10. And I don't read that many romance novels, so this is pretty big that it was one of my favorites.
Well, it was my favorite romance for the summer, and you're absolutely right. It took a minute to get to the romance, but I think once you get there, it pays off. It really, really pays off. I thought the writing was just beautiful, and it's a slow burn, but it will be well worth the wait.
Yes, that's exactly what it was. I was just waiting for it, waiting to see when it was going to pop up. But yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Book 8. What's book 8 on your list?
Book 8 is The Personal Librarian by Marie Benedict and Victoria Christopher Murray. This is the remarkable little-known story of Bella DaCosta Green, J.P. Morgan's personal librarian, who became one of the most powerful women in New York, despite the dangerous secret she kept in order to make her dreams come true. And that secret, of course, was that she was a Black woman and she was passing for white. So this book is historical fiction, which a lot of people are kind of like, about, but it was such a good read. I knew of Belle DaCosta Green's story, but the authors really did a good job of bringing Belle to life. The writing was very sophisticated, and it's interesting that there are two authors, one Black woman and one white woman. And I think that gave the writing and the story more depth and authenticity that I'm not sure would have happened if just one of them had written the story.
That's an interesting perspective for sure for readers to keep in mind when they're picking up The Personal Librarian. Okay, I'm super excited about book 7. What's book 7 on your list, Kimberly?
Book 7 is Just As I Am by the Cicely Tyson. I was trying to think about how could I summarize Cicely Tyson's book up. I couldn't. So I just have to use her words. And she says, just as I am is my truth. It is me, plain and unvarnished, with the glitter and garland set aside. Here I am indeed Cicely, the actress who has been blessed to grace the stage and screen for 6 decades. And here in my 9th decade, I'm a woman who at long last has something meaningful to say. I just thought that Cicely Tyson didn't think she had anything worthwhile to say until she was in her 90s, which is absolutely crazy to me. This book was, of course, it's her memoir, but it felt like a long hug from your grandmother. She's open and honest and vulnerable and insightful and entertaining and wise. And it was everything I didn't know I needed. And I'm so glad that she wrote it. I ended up reading it. I started it on the day that she passed away. So I started the book, and then I hear as I'm driving that she passed away. And I just like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. But I'm glad she wrote it, and I'm glad it's out there so that we can have something, because she's an absolutely amazing person.
I agree with you, Kimberly. The fact she didn't think she had something to say was wild to me. And I was excited to see this book on your list because it's a book I absolutely loved. I wish she would have, given us stories over time so we could, see her evolution, both as a storyteller, writing a book, but just her life in general. But I'm happy, like you said, we have something from her, because it was so sad. She passed shortly after the book was actually published. But oh my God, this book was it was just so good. I agree with you. How do you summarize?
I cannot. It's like, okay, summarize Cicely Tyson's book. I cannot. I cannot. It was a great book. And I feel like I need to go back and reread it, because I don't think I got everything.
Same. I think this one will definitely be a reread down the road. Okay, what's book 6?
Book 6 is The Yellow Wife by Sadiqa Johnson. This book is historical fiction as well. Born on a plantation in Charles City, Virginia, Phoebe Brown was promised her freedom on her 18th birthday by her father, who was also her master. But when her birthday finally comes around, she finds herself sold off to the worst place imaginable, The Devil's Half Acre, which is a jail where slaves are broken, tortured, and sold every day. She's forced to become the mistress of the brutal man who owns the jail, and Phoebe faces the ultimate sacrifice to protect her heart in this powerful, thrilling story of one enslaved woman's fight for freedom. So I know how some people feel about stories about slavery. And yeah, I would just say this wasn't the typical slave story. It was very, very different. It changed my mind about historical fiction. Sadiqa Johnson had me holding on for dear life with this one. The saga was so engaging. I felt every single emotion. I love how she was able to bring this story, which isn't, most people really have never heard of The Devil's Half Acre, but it really did exist. And so I like that it brought this story to light. There were so many twists and turns. When people ask me about it, I hate to describe it this way, but it felt like a slave soap opera because there was just so much going on that it felt like it could definitely be a TV show. And I think I could see it being like an episode of Underground. I don't know if you watched that show.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I felt like it fit right in line with the things that were happening on Underground. But it was just, this book had my heart racing. I just didn't know. I had to finish it. It was one of those books that you just cannot put down. But I was all in. And like I said, I wouldn't mind seeing this one on screen because it was just that good.
I agree. I think it would do real well on screen. This was one of the books that came out early this year. It was one of my early favorites right off the bat. And like you mentioned, historical fiction can be tricky sometimes, but this one was just so, so, so good. And again, like you said it best. I know how some folks feel about slave stories, but this is not your typical story at all. And I think Sadiqa Johnson did an absolutely great job weaving this tale. It was one of my favorites early in the year, for sure.
Yeah, same. As soon as I finished it, I was just telling everybody, you must read it. And it's a hard sell because it's about slavery, but yeah, it's a good one.
Absolutely. Okay, we're at the halfway point. What's book 5?
Number 5 is We Should All Be Millionaires, A Woman's Guide to Earning More, Building Wealth, and Gaining Economic Power by Rachel Rodgers. We Should All Be Millionaires details a realistic, achievable, step-by-step path to creating the support, confidence, and plan you need to own your success and become the millionaire the world needs you to be. This was the most motivating book I've read in a very long time. The way that Rachel Rodgers is able to break down the history of women and our lack of economic power, how our relationship to money impacts how we make and spend money, and how the decisions we make on a daily basis directly impacts our ability or our inability to make the money that we want to make, was amazing. She was totally relatable and very engaging. I listened to this one on Audible, and it had a real podcast feel to it, which I absolutely loved. And it changed my entire financial mindset. I have not thought the same way about money since reading this book. She has a real way of connecting, and it's a real homegirlish type feel to you getting your finances in order and making money by doing the things that you want to do. It's not your Dave Ramsey kind of how to be a millionaire type situation. It's the total opposite.
Well, this one's new to me, but you've sold me on it because I think it's something we all aspire to do, which is get our money right.
Who doesn't want money? Yeah.
Yes. So I think I'll be adding this one to my bookshop list because I'm heading to the bookstore this weekend. So We Should All Be Millionaires, Rachel Rodgers. Okay, yes, I'm definitely adding that one to my list.
Yes.
Okay, book 4. What's book 4 on the list?
Book 4 is Feeding the Soul, Because It's My Business, Finding Our Way to Joy, Love, and Freedom by Tabitha Brown. Rich with personal stories and inspirational quotes and sprinkled with a few easy vegan recipes, Feeding the Soul is the book we all need when we need to be reminded that we have purpose and should seek it, that patience and hard work do work, that minding your business is the way to go, and that having a dream and working to make it come true is totally worth it. In true Tabitha Brown fashion, she lovingly shares her stories and wisdom on how we can live a little better. I am a huge Tabitha fan, so I was looking forward to this book, but I was overwhelmingly surprised at how good it was. She was so transparent. The whole book was really like going to church and hearing a sermon that you feel was written especially for you. That's how the whole book felt. I've gone back several times to listen to different parts of it because I did do this on Audible because it's Tabitha Brown and I feel like you have to have her read it to you. Otherwise, I mean, why are we doing it? But it's just a little book of wisdom. I ended up listening to it on Audible and then I ran out and bought the hard copy because I needed to take notes.
Wow.
And I needed to tab it. So tab, pun intended. I needed to tab it. So it was a great book. I keep it on my nightstand because, it's just a little book of wisdom and I loved it.
So, fun fact, I actually got a copy of this book. I had it on my shelf. Then my library had the audio. So then I listened to the audio. And like you, I found myself grabbing the book and then making tabs as I'm listening along. Like I'll get to a point, I was like, oh, yeah. And I'll go grab the book and I'm making it tabs too.
We're tabbing it, yes.
We're tabbing it. But I loved Feeding the Soul. I thought it was a great book. I think it will make a great gift. I mean, I know we're talking top 10 books right now, but I think it would be a great gift at any time of the year. Yeah, give Tabitha Brown. It's the gift that will keep on giving. It really is.
Totally agree.
Okay, we're getting into top 3 territory. What's book 3 on the list?
I'm nervous. I'm getting in top 3. It's number 3 is Will by Will Smith. One of the most dynamic and globally recognized entertainment forces of our time, opens up fully about his life in a brave and inspiring book that traces his learning curve to a place where outer success, inner happiness, and human connection are aligned. Along the way, Will tells a story in full of one of the most amazing rides through the worlds of music and film that anyone has ever had. This memoir was shockingly impressive and very well written. I'm not sure what I was expecting, but I was extremely happy. And it's not a short book by any stretch of the imagination, but I devoured it. It was a very engaging story, the way he chose to tell his story. But my favorite thing about this book is that the Audible version was absolutely amazing. He took Audible to a whole new level. So the story was good. The story was great. It's a great book. But in the Audible version, he's playing the piano, he's rapping, he's impersonating everybody he's talking about. It was a production. And I know I'm just taking a big leap here and saying this is the number 1 Audible book of the year because it was a production. And it makes sense that someone like Will Smith would do this, that his Audible book would be a little different, but I'm glad he did it. And I've been telling everyone that if you only read the hard copy, you missed the other half of the story.
Wow. Okay. So I haven't read the book, but I've been hearing so many great things. And I said, you know what? I'm saving this for my December break. Okay. I think that's when I'm really going to dive in. But now I think I might just jump either in my audiobook line at the library or just get it on Audible and be done with it because this sounds so good. So many people have been sharing great things. And again, you just sold me on the fact that, hey, if you read the hardback, that's one thing. Right. You need to listen to the audio.
You do. And this is another hard one where I feel like you got to have both because the hard copy has the pictures. But the Audible has Will Smith playing the instrumental version of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Like you have to do both. You have to have both. I'm sorry. I know.
Oh my God. I mean, him doing Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is so iconic.
Right.
I mean, having him do that now at this point, at this stage, as a part of his memoir. Okay. All right. Audio. We're doing.
You got to do that one. I know.
Oh my gosh. Okay. We're going to make it happen. All right. So now, book 2. What's 2 on the list?
Book 2 is The 1619 Project, a new origin story by Nikole Hannah-Jones. The 1619 Project it builds on the New York Times Magazine's award-winning 1619 Project, which reframed our understanding of American history by placing slavery and its continuing legacy at the center of our national narrative. So the New York Times Project blew my mind, so I knew I had to read this book. And the book is a continuation of that project. But Nikole Hannah-Jones is such a masterful storyteller, and the way she weaves current issues with the legacy of slavery is enlightening and it's impressive. It'll definitely have you thinking twice about things that you maybe take for granted or things that you maybe wondered why things are the way they are, especially in American history. I like that there were contributions from a lot of different writers. And then there's also poetry sprinkled in there. And I just love the way that the story is recentered so that Black people, African Americans, are a part of it. We are actually a part of this narrative. And that's something that rarely happens. And, of course, she's super controversial, but I thought that the book was beautifully written. And then there's also the kid companion book, Born on the Water, which I bought for my kids, even though they're probably gonna think it's too kiddie, but it's a beautiful book. So yeah, 1619 is my number 2. I think that everyone should read it because it'll give you something to think about. It'll give you a different perspective on history.
Absolutely. That's also a book I'm working my way through as we speak, and it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal just how everything's being presented. I also think this is a must-have on everyone's shelf.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not expecting you to get through it in one go, but, just take your time. Don't rush it and just make your way through the pages. Again, great gift item.
It is
something we should all have on our list and have on our shelves. So, yeah. Book 2, The 619 Project. Okay, so this is a drum roll moment now. You guys, I know what Kimberly's book 1 is, and I'm telling you that book, because I'm going to share my top 10 list. I'm going to be the last one to share, but this book is also on my list, and it is rivaling my number 1 because it was so, so, so good. It was
okay.
I was so sad it was pushed, the publication date, because I remember it was supposed to be in, the heat of summer. Then it became late summer going into fall.
Mm-hmm. I was waiting for it too.
Listen, I was timing it, waiting it. I'm telling everyone in May, this is the book to read in the summer, sharing it in the guide and then seeing it being pushed down the road. But it doesn't matter, you guys, even though I was frustrated. It made its way onto shelves.
Finally.
It made its way, I feel, into readers' hearts. And it's a big book, but it's such a good book. You're going to wish there were more pages. So, Kimberly, what's book 1 on the list?
Book 1 is The Love Songs of W.E.B. Du Bois by Honorée Fanonne Jeffers. To come to terms with her own identity, Ailey embarks on a journey through her family's past, uncovering the shocking tales of generations of ancestors. In doing so, Ailey must learn to embrace her full heritage. I fell in love with Ailey Pearl Garfield and this story that I'm comparing to Alex Haley's Roots. The book is perfection. After 800 pages of Ailey's story, I desperately wanted more. The way that Honorée Fanonne Jeffers tells the story of the past and links it to the present was something that is not common. And the way that she was able to do it, maybe it's because she's a poet. I don't know, but the book, it was just beautiful. Like, I have so much to say about the book that I don't even know what to say about the book. You won't be disappointed by it. It's a story of legacy, of history, of family, of what we lose or have lost in not knowing what our previous generations have gone through. There's just so many themes and she covers so many things, but in the end, it's just a beautiful story about a Black woman finding herself. And I just loved it. It was perfect. And everybody's getting it for Christmas. I'm going to Oprah this one. Everybody's getting one.
Yes, I love it.
Everybody's getting this book. I don't care and it's 800 pages. And I always have to tell people, okay, so it's kind of long, but it doesn't feel like 800 pages.
That part, because that's what I'm saying. you're going to pick the book up and you're like, wait, what? Am I supposed to be doing weights with this? Why is this so big?
Right.
Will I even be able to finish it? You have all these thoughts, but I promise you, just start reading. You're going to be flying through those pages like nobody's business. Then you're going to be wanting more pages. You're going to be like, wait, why? It's just one of those books. I think, it's profound. It's history, it's love, it's family. It's just everything. I agree when you said it's perfection, because I feel that this book is perfection. I think it's going to be talked about years from now. This isn't going to go away. It's just, and you're right, maybe because she's a poet, because it does have, this poetic style to it. It flows. It's beautiful. I can't say enough about this book.
It is. And I definitely love the Du Bois tie-ins at the beginning of every chapter. It made me want to go back and read all of his work as well.
Mm-hmm.
This book is kind of a rabbit hole. Like, you can read it and then you'll be reading Du Bois and then it'll never end. But yes, it was definitely, it was hard coming up with 10 books, but I had no problem deciding that this was number one.
Right. Absolutely. And I get it, because it sounds like we feel the exact same way about this one book. It was just, it was brilliant. You need it on your shelf and gift it to everyone. It just makes sense for sure. Kimberly, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your top 10. I had so much fun talking books with you and just hearing your love for them. Telling us when the audio is good and just all the good vibes. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been fun.
Readers, I had so much fun speaking with Michelle and Kimberly. And I want to thank them again for coming and lounging on the couch with us and sharing their top 10 books of 2021. In the next episode, and to close out our top 10 books of 2021 series, I will be sharing my personal top 10 books. So be sure to tune in. Thank you so much for tuning in to The Reader's Couch. You can find out more about the show and submit your questions for our guest by visiting our website, thereaderscouch.com. You can also connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Couch Is Booked. If you like the show, please subscribe, share, and take a few seconds to leave a rating and review. Next week, I'll be back with new guests, more books, and some fun games we can play. But until then, stay lounging, stay reading, and whenever you're in doubt, go straight to your local bookstore or library. Thanks for listening, and happy reading.